Welcome back on the same topic. We're very delighted to be having with us live over the phone Dr. Magdy Allam. He's advisor to the World Climate Program and Environment Facility. Good morning, Dr. Allam.
Morning.
How are you doing, sir? So exactly what is the COP16 Convention on Biodiversity and what are the objectives of that conference?
There are, of course, main agreements all over the world. One of them is the Biodiversity Agreement, which is one of the oldest agreements all over the actually attraction of the main elements of protection of endangered species, especially, and biodiversity, of course, nowadays is one of the critical items all over the agreements, either with the climate change agreement or the desertification agreement or the biodiversity agreement or even the hazardous waste management agreements. All of those agreements are actually focusing on protection of environment, of all of the items of environment. One of the main actually environment is the COP16 for the biodiversity. The COP16 for the biodiversity is actually completing the climate resilience agreement and also the desertification agreement in addition to the international water seas agreement. So those are the four main major agreements all over the world that actually going through the details of each sector, with more details with the endangered areas that being nowadays being affected by more of the pollution and more of the drought, and even the desertification is have what's called the encroachment of the sand dunes. The encroachment of sand dunes is one of the negative waves that destroying a lot of some of the water resources in addition to the biodiversity. So it's actually the Minister of Environment, Dr. Yasmin Fouad, has a focus on those agreements, and this agreement actually is adding a lot of cooperation between the three major agreements all over the world. Of course, the meeting between Dr. Yasmin Fouad and the three agreements to have effective results that added to the developing countries, the 20 developing countries actually, in addition to the advanced countries, equally being actually involved with the same responsibility, and actually also to protect the biodiversity from any of the endangered species or endangered actions or even some pollutants due to the sand dunes. In addition to this, actually, Dr. Yasmin Fouad, the Minister of Environment for Egypt, actually is working with the parallel three conferences at the same time. The three conferences, actually, one of them is with the cooperation with the Denmark representatives, how to add more funds for the climate resilience. The more funds is essential nowadays, while we are now, all the experts have fears from the drought and from actually the loss of biodiversity, in addition to increase of temperature expected to exceed the 1.5 degrees, maybe a reading that to have 2 or even 2.5 degrees of temperature, which is actually more negative destruction of all of the biodiversity. So it's very logic that for example, the certification agreement and the biodiversity agreement has of both of them a special attention from the Arab states, especially the Saudi Arabia Kingdom. They have actually more coordination with the African countries, with the Arab countries also, to go to more SDGs application. The sustainable development sustainability is an essential step to go through the three major agreements. Also, Dr. Yasmin Fouad, in the meeting with His Excellency the Canadian Ambassador, with 15 members from all developing countries, has nowadays a more attention for the fund for the actually the disaster risks, and the funds also for the maybe also the certification itself, the biodiversity losses, and actually the climate change, more extreme events with more actually destruction of ecosystems. So it's actually very logical that the biodiversity going to have more attention with the other countries, especially the northern countries. The northern countries nowadays are affected by the destruction of some of the ice mountains there, so increasing the water level from the north to the south with even up to 4 centimeters, but this 4 centimeters may be affect more than 1.5 actually degrees, which is actually our field. All the experts have fears that the 1.5 degrees will actually a turning point in more of the global warming. The global warming nowadays is the negative waves that we are fearing from. In addition, of course, the more pollution of the plastic fractions all over the countries and all over the seas and all over the oceans. And this actually, the plastic pollution is another negative effect for all the biodiversity and also the creatures, especially endangered creatures. So it's actually a very important step, the meeting with Stephen Gelbolo, to have the looking on more of the Canadian experience to deal with the reduction of the plastic pollution as one of the major destructive impacts on the biodiversity.
Right. Minister of Environment indicated that this is the first time in many years that the three conferences coincide in the same year. So what does that signify?
It's signifying that the integration between all the agreements is very essential. We cannot actually dealing with each agreement as completely away from the other agreements. Nowadays, the attention all over the world that must be a cooperation between the partners of the agreement. For example, nowadays the agreement for the climate change is the major one, and the more attention of importance of this agreement as far as the climate resilience and the climate attention. It has more attention from all the partners, but this attention for the climate resilience and the climate adaptation, and even for more of the annexes of the climate agreement, this cannot being put the experts and the partners and even the kings and the presidents all over the world not to go through and cooperation with the other agreements. They are so essential also. They are very important also. So this is the point that in the meeting between Dr. Yasmin Fouad, the Minister of Environment, and the Canadian Ambassador Stephen Gelbolo, and actually they are together putting an attention how to cooperate with all agreements that we can, every agreement of the certification of hazardous waste and also of biodiversity, in addition to the climate change. Those agreements must integrate with all the local levels, especially for the African country. The African country having a lot of losses. The sand dunes are actually going to encroach more of the destruction of the food security. The nexus triangle between water and the energy and the biodiversity actually cannot be neglected. So all the agreements nowadays must be integrated together because we cannot separate each issue or each area away from the other one. We must go together for everything, even the very minor steps.
Right. Dr. Yasmin Fuad also has indicated that Egypt has a pivotal role in the three conferences on equal food. What is the importance of Egypt's role in the climate conferences? Of course, there's a lot of participation, but exactly if you could elaborate over the importance of Egypt's role when it comes to climate change conferences, and how does it add to these conferences?
Actually, starting from the COP27 being done in Egypt and under the patronage of His Excellency President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, was actually a turning point in this area. And this turning point is giving an attention that all of the agreements must integrate together, and they cannot going to go separate for each agreement. And of course, there is more detail in each agreement, not to be enough with the one agreement to have an attention and neglecting the other agreements. So the integration between the three agreements is very essential to have more development and to have also more allocation of funds, because some agreements have allocation of funds more than the other agreements, especially, for example, the desertification agreement, which is suffering from the low income of support of this. So nowadays, there must be an equal or at least the basic fund for each agreement to continue to protect all the elements of the biodiversity. And of course, nowadays we have more problem that the attention for more new viruses and more new bacteria. They are nowadays, those kinds of creatures are more resistant for the medicinal or medicine dealing with this. So it's very important that there must be attention for all the negative effects of the increasing of the corona or the similar viruses, because it affects a lot of health, especially for the children. In addition to the loss of nutrition, and this is actually the children and the women are the more exposed sectors for this poor situation. And nowadays is an immigration. Because of the loss of biodiversity, more of immigration in African continent, moving from their original resources and original houses, looking for water sources, looking for food resources. So there is more negative effects because of the increasing of population and in the same time the increasing of the viruses that affecting the health of the children and women, and especially the women that have a rule for their happiness.
Right. What exactly are the implications of Egypt assuming the joint presidency with Denmark to facilitate the climate financing negotiations, which are actually important issues to advance the climate action agenda?
Yeah, actually the Scandinavians and the northern countries usually they have special attention for the creation, especially for the endangered species of birds. And you know that we have 5 ways coming from the high north to the south of Africa, and the 5 pathways are crossing for the Egypt Peninsula. And we are among the countries all over the world that are protecting the pathway of those immigration of birds. And this is actually another resources for the Egyptian funds, because a lot of visitors, a lot of actually tourists and tourism groups coming especially to go to the locations of the protected areas. We have nowadays up to 26 protected areas in Egypt, and some of those protected areas are especially attention with some of the visitors coming especially to go to the bird houses all over the Red Sea and all over also the South Sinai and Sharm el-Sheikh, in addition to also the Red Sea, with the protection of the coral reefs, which is actually very, very rare to be found all over the globe, except in Florida in the United States. So we in Egypt and in Florida have special attention for the biodiversity of those kinds of birds coming especially to get their rest. And we have 5 pathways with more than 25 locations up to now. 26 actually protected areas are declared by the Ministry of Environment, and in the way we will go to up to 40 locations to be protected areas internationally and locally in Egypt.
From your own point of view, our final question to you, sir, what are the options available to combat plastic pollution?
This is actually the most difficult issue, because actually the plastic is so easy and so low price, but actually very destructive as far as we can have in the fishes itself. The signs of loose plastic being in the food for many of the population all over the country, especially in Africa, and which is actually, we think it is good that it is very cheap, the plastic, but it is very dangerous, and it can be standing up to 500 years in the water, in the soil, in the air. So it is not easy to get rid of the plastic. The plastic is very negative material for the health, especially on the children and the ladies actually. So we have some attention for the plastic residues, because it's actually covering a lot of the, maybe the seas, and also all over the coast of the, for example, the oceans. They are nowadays being more accumulated of plastic residues. Everything in the food, in the water, in everything, you cannot get rid of this unless we have actually a full transfer of the plastic, what's called degradable plastic. This one is the healthy one that we can rely on, and I'm so happy that I can see in Egypt a production of this kind of green plastic, as we can say.
Right. On that note, of course, Dr. Magdy Allam, advisor to the World Climate Program and also the Environment Facility, we'd like to thank you, sir, talking to the Breakfast Show. And now we're going to take a short break and we'll come right back to you, so stay with us.